And so the real problem that we're solving at NBS is that I can get 100 of these different clinicians into a room and put one person with autism in front of them and say, what are you going to do with this person for treatment or support? And they'll all have completely different ideas. And most of the reason they do it that way is because that's how they've always done it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Awesome's podcast, where we highlight people pursuing their definition of, you guessed it, awesome. So buckle up and get ready for some more success story adventures and failures from Kentucky's tech and entrepreneur community. Sweet, we're live. Well, hey everyone, thanks for tuning back into this episode of the Autism podcast. I am sitting down with one of the new fall 2023 fellowship founders, here with Mandy, also known as Amanda Ralston, but Mandy's that's how you know if we're friends. So I'm glad that we're on the friend nickname level, who is the founder of Non-Binary Solutions. And because it's a mouthful, we'll say NBS the rest of the episode. That also sounds like a news station or something really fancy. So look at you, what you created. So we are sitting down just right after the event that you got to be highlighted in. And again, we're excited to see what you're going to accomplish this upcoming year in the fellowship. I'm excited to sit down with you and get to know you a little bit better, but also hear some of your background, and we'll just kick things off. But first, and most importantly, Mandy, how was your weekend? What'd you do? What's life like?
The weekend was good, pretty low key. I mean, I tend to also work on the weekends, so it's a nice change to not have appointments between working on my computer, I suppose, but pretty low key.
Okay.
Nothing fantastic.
Nothing fantastic?
No.
Well, I just got back from a weekend trip in New York City with my family, so life is a lot slower here than up there.
That's a good thing, I think.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I sleep more when I'm here.
There's far less rats here. So.
You hear that, guys? There are far less rats here in Lexington, Kentucky than New York City. So, well, with that, Mandy, you had the honor, which was a really cool thing to take part in, watching you pitch at Fellowship Demo Day about what you're doing. And you've been all around the state of Kentucky, from what I've seen, whether it's on LinkedIn, on your some of your other social media, talking about your company, Non-Binary Solutions, NBS, which we'll say moving forward. That you're doing something that I really didn't know there was a market for this.
Yeah.
And I'd love for the people to hear a bit about what NBS is from your perspective. Also, what's your background? Because I think that holds probably some of the most necessary credibility for why you have stepped into this space to bring about your solution.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of feedback that I'm quote unquote everywhere when people see me in person. Like, man, you're everywhere. Like, every time I'm on LinkedIn, you're all over it. Every time I look on social media, you're all over it. Somebody called me the Roy Kent of ABA at one point. So
Roy Kent.
Yeah, that felt pretty good.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
we can't do the whole thing, but yeah. So yeah, I've been here in Kentucky for 25 years now, I think, a little bit over that. So I came down from West Virginia to play basketball and run track at Center College, and pretty much stayed ever since. Center is where I first learned about a diagnosis called autism, and that was in 1999. My textbook told me it was 1 in every 1,000 individuals were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And now that rate of autism diagnosis is 1 in every 36 people. And so we've had an over 250% increase in the diagnosis rate. And also, when I was at Center, I learned that the quote-unquote gold standard for treatment was something called applied behavior analysis. So I met several families here in Lexington that were flying consultants out from California quarterly in order to cobble together these applied behavior analysis, or ABA, programs. And they were using college students and friends and family as technicians. So this is very, very early in the autism treatment world, right? So I got interested in becoming a board-certified behavior analyst, and I took my test in 2001 in Nashville, Tennessee, with a number 2 pencil on the Scantron machine, and became one of the first 1,500 certified behavior analysts worldwide. Certification had just started in 1998, and so I spent the next 2 decades building 2 different clinics that provided ABA therapy for individuals on the autism spectrum. And then after I sold my clinic in 2019, I learned about clinical decision support systems. And so that is what I am now building with non-binary solutions.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. So let's go back. So you said Center College, late 90s.
Yep.
1999. You mentioned an acronym ABA.
Yeah, it's Applied Behavior Analysis.
Okay, and then you took a test on a Scantron and a number 2 pencil, which people don't know what those are anymore because they're all digital.
That's right.
And you were one of the first 1,500, not in just Kentucky, not in the United States, but globally.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I got right in at the beginning. So certification started in 1998 in Florida, and I met my mentor, who was Dr. Vincent Carbone, because he was out giving 3-day workshops on better teaching skills for those types of therapists. And so I started gently stalking him around the United States, and he ended up being my supervisor to get board certified. So
that's really impressive.
Yeah.
So a crazy number, you said, when you first learned from your good old textbook, 1 in 1,000 individuals were diagnosed with autism.
Yep.
Fast forward, not even 30 years later.
Right.
So 2025-ish.
Yeah.
Or close to. We are at 1 in 36.
Yes. So it's roughly 3% of the population has an autism spectrum diagnosis at this point. And so I wrote a paper about this, and for those of you that are interested, you can go to my website and download it for free. But there are lots of different things at play that sort of cause, quote unquote, this rise in this rate of diagnosis. And hashtag, it's not binary. It's no one thing that's causing this, right? You've got the dawn of the internet. You've got insurance mandates that finally start coming in around 2001, 2003. The dawn of a program called Autism Speaks, which now has April branded as Autism Awareness Month or Autism Acceptance Month, depending on who you ask. So there's lots of different things happening at the same time. There is increased awareness, there's greater demand, there's growth in the providers. And so those 3 things sort of create a flywheel of driving the need for more services, payment for more services, and therefore, because there is increased access to care for the autism diagnosis, people are more willing to actually give the diagnosis earlier and faster. Okay. Right. And so, there's just a lot of things that are driving those metrics up.
Gotcha. So to me, it sounds like where there might have been a lack of speed, maybe to do the research, to dive into things and identify it. Now we're on the other side of, oh, hey, we think this is a potential issue in a child or maybe even an adult, and we want to identify it quicker versus, oh, it's unknown, so let's just stay away from it.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So you mentioned, but before we slow down and got to know all of your pretty cool credentials, I must say, that you are now building NBS to solve a problem that is doing what exactly?
Yeah, so with the increase in the diagnosis rate, we've also had a 500% increase in the providers in the last 10 years.
Okay, so these are people helping with diagnosis? Okay, diagnoses.
Yeah, and well, the treatment or support of those individuals after they get their diagnosis. And so of those providers, over half of the field has less than 5 years of experience. A very young group of providers or clinicians that are making all of the treatment decisions revolving around care and support for these various individuals. And so the real problem that we're solving at NBS is that I can get 100 of these different clinicians into a room and put one person with autism in front of them and say, what are you going to do with this person for treatment or support? And they'll all have completely different ideas. Ooh. And most of the reason they do it that way is because that's how they've always done it. That's how they were trained. And so there is no standardization in the process of determining what treatment pathways to go with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I hear that, I instantly think a lot of people like to maybe learn the standard and then, hey, here's my approach once I know how to do this. What you're saying is there's no standard, so people, it's free for all.
More or less, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit Wild West. What we're trying to do with the clinical decision co-pilot software, if you will, is to give sort of a digital bumper rails on how to think about all of the information that you need to take into consideration in order to individualize a treatment plan. So we're not standardizing the treatment, we're standardizing the process of determining the treatment. So,
well, there are a couple more things I want to pick your brain about. One thing I think is so helpful to know, because again, we have people that listen to the show that are 18 in college, that are 60 plus building a company. It ranges. Of all things, why do you care about this? And why are you giving your time and your life to helping families, different individuals, and now, like you've said, helping clinicians learn how to use best practices in this field?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the power of ABA therapy to help change lives when I was working directly in the industry. And I still think that that's true. But because of the relative newness and the inexperience that's being passed down generation over generation in terms of providers at this point, the quality is being diluted, right? And so I want to help ensure that the quality continues so that we actually get outcomes for people with autism that matter.
Mm-hmm. Mandy, you mentioned how years ago, I believe this was late 90s, early to maybe mid 2000s, where families, I would imagine, based on the time, these were the upper tier in society that were able to fly out consultants if, I'm imagining also a child was, someone diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
And to me, that is wild because that's such a tiny percent of the population that had that ability.
That's right.
So if you can, walk me through what has gone on behind the scenes from your vantage point from, again, let's say 20 years ago, so maybe 2003 to present day, that has afforded more families that maybe they think their spouse or a relative or a child has a diagnosis. How do they go about figuring all that stuff out?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very small sliver of the population that would be able to actually fly somebody from California as a consultant now to help cobble together these types of treatment programs to improve daily quality of life for the children and families, right? Because the families saw the benefit of the therapy, they were very grassroots in their organization and went on a heavy campaign to get insurance mandates in all these different states. And so the first state to actually get an insurance mandate in place was Indiana in 2001. It wasn't until 2010 that we had 23 different states that had insurance coverage in place, right? And at 2012, there were only 10,000 certified behavior analysts in the entire world. So you've got insurance companies that are required to pay for treatment in half of the states in the United States, and you've only got 10,000 providers.
Okay.
So that's what has driven this massive explosion in the growth of the providers. Like I said, that's that 500% increase in those providers over the last 10 years. And so, yeah, now we've got more access to care. But again, we've not necessarily solved for the fact that we don't have enough experience behind those individuals that have that care. So the software, the clinical decision support systems that we're building called Noetic, they are meant to help guide those relatively inexperienced individuals into proper treatment. So
can you talk a bit more to that? What do, you're making decision support software. It seems, and this might be a silly comment, it seems pretty straightforward with what you're trying to accomplish. You mentioned the digital bumper bowling alley kind of analogy, which makes sense. You're giving guide rails. What do these systems entail? Maybe what's some of the curriculum like, or the decision support software work? What does it entail for people to learn to say, oh, this is actually maybe how I should be addressing patients, or this should be my starting point, my foundation before I then do whatever else comes next?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, part of the reason I know all this is because I made some of these mistakes myself in 25 years. And so currently what tends to happen is that families will come into an ABA therapy clinic and say, my 8-year-old son still isn't toilet trained. He only eats 5 things, and we can't go to church anymore because he screams in the back pews or something like that, right? And then the provider will listen to all that and say, great, we're going to do this assessment and this assessment, which are sort of canned assessments that are typically used. And they really don't have anything to do with the 3 things that family were affecting their quality of life, right? Related to the diagnosis. And so what this software does is helps the interview process to really understand the unique individual that is coming into your care and saying, have you thought of this? Have you looked at this? Have you read this? Here's an abstract related to an article regarding toilet training or sleep issues or food selectivity issues. And that will help you make a decision based on the data that's available right now and point you in the right direction.
Totally different world than just even hearing you share this. To that, you're making a huge impact and you're getting to serve a lot of people. Can you share off the top of your head maybe some of the things that NBS is having traction with right now that you're most excited about, whether that's a client or a really cool customer story, probably HIPAA compliance, all that stuff, but just something off the top of your head that, hey, this happened and this is why we're doing what we're doing.
Totally. Yeah. So to the previous discussion about who was able to access all of this care, if we just look at commercial insurance and the outcome data or the patient data related to the individuals who are being served through that particular channel, it's going to be a very privileged set of data, right? By way of the fact that somebody had a job that can get them that type of insurance. Yeah. And so one of the early customers that we have that I'm really excited about is the University of Georgia.
Oh, cool.
With the Center for Autism and Behavioral Education Research, because the clients that they serve in their program are individuals who have no longer been able to access public school education based on their behavioral issues or their level of needs.
Man, like even hearing you say that has never once crossed my mind.
Right. Like, hey, your needs are so significant.
We have to pull you from.
We won't even serve you here in a public school setting.
Wow.
Right. And so that data set is going to be far more representative of multiple different demographics and socioeconomic issues than would be just looking at commercial insurance.
Okay.
And so same thing with another group that we're working with, which is a large multi-state managed care organization that is overseeing the Medicaid provider group for those different states. And again, based on the social determinants of health and who's able to access that type of care, that's going to be a very different data set as well.
Geez, that is wild. So I have no idea what the answer to this question would be. Is there anything like that in Kentucky at a Kentucky university based on what you mentioned? Hey, we have this client in Georgia. Is there an equivalent here in the States or here in our state?
Well, I've been working with the University of Kentucky Center for Innovation and Population Health. They have an assessment tool that they devised back in the late 90s, I think, and it's been an open source assessment. But yeah, they've got certain assessment tools that we're going to be able to embed into our software, and also UK has a training program for other behavior analysts through the College of Education as well. So we're working to try to collaborate with them to see if we can get a similar relationship as what we have with UGA.
Very cool. Well, let's go cats and not bulldogs, at least for this scenario. Well, Mandy, very cool to hear what you're working on accomplishing. And we're talking with a bunch of other really exciting, really fun startups. One thing you have to do as a founder is we got to make some money. And I'd love to hear maybe some of your business model. You mentioned your SaaS platform and you have, cool clients with UGA. How does MBS make money? How are you guys able to potentially scale?
Yeah, we've taken a particular track, sort of a two-pronged approach with getting this thing off the ground. So our alpha customers, UGA, that managed care organization, another private school here in Kentucky, as our three alpha customers, we have been building their intake models, their sort of initial software on a low-code solution so that we can very quickly iterate and make changes as they request. So our product velocity is very, very quick. And so they are actually paying for something that doesn't exist yet. And I think that is demonstrative of the level of need for this type of solution in this space, is that literally folks are saying, yes, we'll sign up. We haven't even seen what it looks like yet.
Yep.
So basically, those customers are also a way of monetizing revenue, monetizing research and discovery and development. And so with those learnings from the data that we're getting from the alpha models and the customer feedback of can it do this, will it do that, can you make it do X, Y, and Z, we're able to take that and use everything that we learn to put into the SaaS product before we have to even write a single line of code.
Wow.
And so it's going to make the actual SaaS coding process that much more efficient, that we won't have to build something, break it, and start over.
You built 2 ABA clinics, so you definitely got some experience. And so it sounds like everything you learned, and I need to make a comment about New York. Everything you've learned, you're now putting into practice. I was in the subway, first time actually. It was something else, but there was a sign for some university, either in New Jersey or New York, that said exceptional education leads to exceptional experience. And I laughed. I work with entrepreneurs. It's the complete opposite. Because you have had exceptional experience, therefore you can build this educational platform.
Yeah.
That will help essentially everyone, go through the landmines of Mandy's past and what she's learned, what you've learned from the years that people necessarily don't have to make mistakes themselves.
Oh yeah. No, again, it's like, what's the quote about, good decision making comes from good experience or something, I'm totally going to murder
from
this.
some unknown author who has a ton of great sayings in history.
Exactly. But yeah, you have to make a lot of mistakes in order to be really knowledgeable at what not to do. I mean, that's what success basically is dusting yourself off over and over and over again. Exactly.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Insert a shoulder rub sound. Well, that's great. So again, you talked about customers. You mentioned University of Georgia, which is really cool. And I've said really cool a lot. So I need to find another.
I think you're partial to it because of the red, white, and black, but that could be a thing, right?
Our podcast studio definitely has a lot of red, white, and black in here.
Yes.
And I'm wearing a maroonish shirt, so we'll go with red today.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any plans for acquiring either some large customers to come, or maybe a specific avenue that's also got you excited?
That was a terrible noise.
I'm going to keep it just for the realness of this episode.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've got a good sales funnel in the terms of the fact that since I've been 25 years in this industry, I literally can text a lot of the COOs, the CCOs, the CEOs of multiples of these organizations. I also get invited to speak at various conferences a lot. I'm pretty much booked for the spring in terms of running my mouth about applied behavior analysis, autism, and what we're building here at NBS. So it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel
at this point for you.
At this point, yeah. It's in terms of, I am a one-man marketing machine in terms of the sales cycle. So
it sounds like you have gotten things to be well ironed out from. You mentioned conferences, your connections in your network, and a good sales team. So it's gonna be fun to hear how you grow, which leads into also why we're talking today. You're part of the fellowship. You're one of, I think now we're 84. I think I should know this. We're now hitting in the 80s. So we're getting close to 100, but Kentucky-based startup companies that we've been able to work with, help scale, and watch them make an impact here in our state. And to what you mentioned a moment ago, I'd love to hear, because I haven't been in some of those conversations with Keith and you, and maybe some of the other founders, but what are you hoping to gain from the fellowship and, for the next calendar year? Or maybe even a better question, what has you most excited that you can partner to accomplish with our team to help NBS accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I've been through the Launch Blue Accelerator in their incubator currently. I'm excited about the new framework, the new structure to view my own progress and goals through with Autism Inc. Again, this is not my first rodeo in terms of building a business, but it's good to have a new brain trust to work with, other people to ask me different questions, challenge my assumptions, and having the additional support in terms of videographer, graphic design, all of the development teams that you guys have here, that's worth a mint in and of itself. So I'm pretty stoked to be involved.
Yeah, access to more resources. Well,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Mandy, I'm excited. I've watched you pitch this year. Like we said, you've been around everywhere, especially Kentucky. And you said it earlier, and I couldn't come up with a better tagline, but you said when insurance was mandated in 50 states, I was thinking Mandy in 50 states. that title needs some reworking. But it'd be cool again to see what someone from Kentucky, which I still talk to people, whether I'm at a conference, a college class, you name it. And I ask what people think of Kentucky, and they're like, oh, barefoot hillbillies. You drink too much bourbon, you gamble a lot. It's like, yeah, there's definitely a sect of us that is like that. But the companies that are coming from Kentucky are radically evolving, are the quality of entrepreneurs that we are seeing is continually just becoming sharper and sharper and sharper. And that's, you're one of those folks. So we're grateful to be partnered with you. I feel like probably the best way to wrap up our time together is let people know how and where they can find more about NBS and how they can either support you as a customer, make a connection. Floor is yours, whatever you'd like.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I am not hard to find on the internet at all. Buyer beware. Don't go to Facebook if you're looking for professionalism. But you can find about non-binary solutions at our website, which is nonbinarysolutions.com. There's also amandaralston.com. You can find me through the link tree. Yes, I'm vaguely professional on LinkedIn if that's your thing. But yeah, not hard to find at all.
I love that you just said that. Vaguely professional. That's funny. That's good. That's good. That filled my cup today. Well, for those of you listening, I've never done this before. Is there a way or an avenue here in Lexington, Kentucky, where people can volunteer or serve with a group that does stuff with local students or adults that have autism? Like, is there any sort of partner in town that you've worked with that whoever's listening could just show up on a Monday at 4 and.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to necessarily just drop in on a group to help support, but you could look up the Autism Society of the Bluegrass. That is a parent support group here in Lexington.
Is that the ASB, since we're keeping with acronyms?
I think so.
Okay,
I think
cool.
so, yeah. ASBG, I think, actually. And then for the Louisville families, there's Families for Effective Autism Treatment, and that's a national organization that has a chapter there in Louisville as well. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Mandy, proud of you. We're excited to watch you grow in the fellowship. Thanks so much for carving out some time and sharing your wisdom and some of your story. Just cool to hear. And I'm not saying this about any other company per se. We think tech company and we think, oh, I'm building this cool app, which there are a lot of cool apps. Like you are effectively helping step into people's lives, in their home life, in maybe the hardest part of their life. So it's just cool. I had no idea. And again, you're a stud. So thanks for doing what you're doing. If you're listening to this podcast, please go check out Non-Binary Solutions. Give Mandy some love and some encouragement, maybe a high five if you find her on LinkedIn. And last but not least, head over to all of our socials at Awesome Inc. Lex to learn about more great stories from wonderful entrepreneurs like Mandy and many more. We'll catch you next time.
thank you so much, Garrett.
Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Awesome Inc.'s podcast. And another quick thank you to Lee Rosevear and a few members from our community who provide the music that you hear in this show. Lastly, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Or even better, come on down to our space. Come be a part of our community and get plugged in, and let's start something awesome together. You guys rock. We'll see you next time.